Good evening, and welcome to the Not So Late Show. We've got a great show in store for you tonight with special guest Spencer Chamberlain. Tonight's show also features the latest single from Slow Tie, Lay Low. But first, without further ado, please welcome your host, Crypto Kyle.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the show, episode 3. Thank you, John, for the intro. Man, I know you're not feeling up to par, but man, I really appreciate you coming through. Now get some rest. Thanks for being here, but skedaddle. It's time to rest up, man. For those of you who don't know, John has been fighting something over the last couple of weeks, and it's just time that he needs to, take a break and get his voice back. But he drank loads of tea and got that announcement segment out of the way. So thanks for doing that. And, it's been an interesting kickoff to the show so far. Juan over here has been able to talk for, really almost 8 weeks now. Of course, that's before the show started, but either way. What's that, Juan? Okay, he's pulling up the cue cards right now. I don't know why he has cue cards. Okay. So the first one says, I may have lost my voice because my team is awesome. All right. What's the next one say? But you didn't lose yours when your Eagles lost. Wow. Thanks, Juan. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. Yeah, let's not give you cue cards anymore. Carl, I don't know why Carl gave him cue cards, but let's avoid that situation. But it's been an interesting couple of weeks. A few things we missed across the board, having a chance to talk about, but I don't know if you guys saw this. Joe Rogan had a guest on that was talking about some lost fossils in the East River up in New York, and has sparked a sort of bone rush. Everyone from amateur archaeologists and divers to people who just need some extra cash are jumping into the river to stake claims to the riches. Rumor has it, at first Rudy Giuliani wanted to get in on a second gold rush, but he then realized that most of the skeletons in his closet are actually in the East River. In unrelated news, Army Hammer was seen saying, "It's mine," and jumping into the river in full scuba gear. So there's that. And of course, in Michigan now, not my home state, but where I've spent a lot of my time, a child has ordered over $1,000 of Grubhub, $400 worth of pizza. Gosh, I guess Grubhub was really understanding. They, sent him some vouchers. They refunded the amount. But I just have a hard time processing why Grubhub went to that trouble when obviously it was the parents' fault. I mean, could you imagine if the kid got into a Tinder account and caused all kinds of havoc? Is Tinder going to come back with a voucher? I mean, come on. But, all these things going on. We've missed the ball with the balloon, but, there's still things popping up all over the place. Last week, we weren't on the air, but we did receive a message from our correspondent, Fred Anderson, who found a video from the weather balloon. And this is what he said. He sent us a telegram. It says, I can confirm that it almost reached the top of the dome. Stop. Okay. Send help. Stop. Found some cocaine. Stop. cocaine in the Pacific Ocean. Stop. Okay. Yeah, so if you guys hadn't seen this, apparently $300 million worth, or 3.5 tons of cocaine, was found in the Pacific Ocean, which apparently is enough cocaine to supply Australia for an entire year. When we reached out to Australia to comment on this, all they had to say was, that's not cocaine. This is cocaine. And then, of course, we had none other than Mike Tyson, who wanted to weigh in on the situation because, why not?
Yeah, let me tell you something about that 3.5 tons of cocaine they found in the Pacific Ocean. Crazy, man. You believe that? 3.5 tons. That's like a whole lot of weight, you know what I'm saying?
I think we know what he's saying, but anyways, LeBron has surpassed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record of 38,386 points, scored while at home, and he did this all while Kareem was in the building, though Kareem is not mad about his fellow Laker taking the top spot. In other news, in New York, a Long Island woman was discovered alive in a funeral home after being pronounced dead. I mean, there's gotta be a way to double check these kinds of things, like mirror under the nose, maybe a needle in your hand. I know John was telling me that there used to be bells inside of coffins because this sort of thing would happen regularly. I'm just gonna say it here for the record. Take note, when you bury me with a cell phone from each carrier in both Android and iPhone, just to make sure I can get connected if I need to. But that's all we have in the way of news. Let's keep this show rolling. So you may know him from bands like Underoath, Sleepwave, or This Runs Through. Here to talk about his latest metamorphosis, Spencer Chamberlain. Happy to have you here, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, dude. Stoked to be here. Appreciate it. I can't believe you even know about the high school This Runs Through. That's great.
Well, I'm a huge fan of your brother as well. Huge Sullivan fan.
Oh, cool.
And like all that stuff.
Right on. Dude, we all started, I was the youngest in the group. So my older brother, I think the coolest thing about growing up the way that I did, being the youngest, is I was always surrounded by music that none of my peers were listening to. My older brother and all of his friends were always like the ones that were listening to the music and were in bands, and I was like watching them from the staircase or whatever and like writing my own music. Eventually I got pushed into all their bands. Yeah. We had bands our whole life. They weren't always heavy, they were rock bands and I guess punk bands and poppier stuff and heavier stuff. But it's just being kids. Like I think I played my first show. I think I played my first show where they actually sold tickets to it. I was like 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's been my whole life. But This Runs Through was one of the first that got signed and known outside of North Carolina, which is where we grew up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it was pretty short-lived. I mean, it was grueling to a bunch of kids that like got to live in a van. And we would come home from that and immediately go do drywall with the guitar player's dad because we couldn't afford to not, like, you know what I mean? Like, you couldn't afford to be on tour. Like, you get enough to play and, like, maybe eat a little bit and fill up the gas tank and move to the next place, So, and then you come home and I would be up at 6 a.m. the next day doing drywall in Florida, which is terribly hot. And I actually did that. So, like, I lived at our guitar player's, who ended up being the guitar player of Sullivan later. I lived at his parents' house in a bedroom with him and my brother at the time. And then when I started working with Underoath, I stayed living there for the first year or so when Underoath was still like playing to nobody except for like maybe Florida and Atlanta or something. But we were like playing pretty small shows all over America. But we were like hitting it hard, and we just made the record that hadn't come out yet. And I think by the time I got home, like the second or third time of doing that, like living in my friend's parents' house, and now I'm no longer in his band anymore. And I come home from being gone for 10 months. I was like, man, I'm going to have to do something about this. So I ended up getting like my first apartment on my own. Like I moved out when I was a little kid, but I got my first apartment on my own when I was I think after Chasing Safety came out. I was like, okay, like I gotta have a place, I guess.
Time to grow up.
Yeah, but it was weird because we were at the scene back then and just music in general back then, like before the streaming era, you cut your teeth on the road. Like you were a better live band than you are a recorded band, which is flipped now for a lot of the younger generation. I feel like it's easier to be great in the studio because we have all these tools at our disposal now and just be not as good live. But back in order, you had to be really good live and you would never have enough money to make a record sound good. But proving to the people, like when you'd go open up for someone and that's how you got fans and people would come by the merch table. So you were touring all the time. So it was weird to get my first apartment on my own. Like I moved out right when I could, but I was like living with my brother and his friends. But when I got my own apartment, it was weird because I'm just like, what do I do with it? I'm never home. Like we're gone all the time.
I guess I need a coffee
You're
maker.
paying bills. Yeah, you're paying somebody to store a bed that you sleep in like maybe 2 months total of the year and a couch and a TV and like put your stuff somewhere. Like, okay, whatever.
And obviously that's where a lot of us first met you was that album, They're Only Chasing Safety. I was kind of recollecting my experience with that album. And I had purchased like a special edition like a year after the album came out. It came with the bonus tracks and the DVD.
Right.
And I remember Tim getting taped to Killswitch Engage vocalist and all this crazy stuff. Great album. But I remember it was the song, I Got 10 Friends and a Crowbar That Says You Ain't Gonna Do Jack. That was the song where I told my buddy, I literally looked at him, I was like, Spencer's bringing something different to the table. They're doing things different.
Yeah, we recorded that song. We recorded that song after, too. I think the first record, there were some songs on Chasing Safety, I took the reins on as far as but like most of it was coming in and not, I'd always been the leader of every band I was in, even if I was the youngest. And then coming into Underoath, then they had a singer before me. Even though like when I came in, we had so much work to do. Like we were tiny. I mean, we were still doing the VFW hall thing a lot of places with 50 kids showing up, but like still coming in and being like, I mean, it's clearly a group here. Like I got to find my footing. And I think it took the first record for us to get there. It wasn't until Define the Great Line to where I think we found like our place as far as a group of what it was. Because, even though we wrote Chasing Safety together, they had started some of it before. And then most of that was scratched, but there was definitely like a start, a jumping point. It wasn't until, I would say 10 Friends and a Crowbar, we went and recorded a year after touring on Chasing Safety for about a year. We just knew that Chasing Safety didn't sound the way we were live. And that was a huge thing that like a growing pain for us is that we hated the way the record sounded. Like not that we weren't proud of it, just that it was like, this isn't us. If you saw us back then, like a lot of kids saw us live before they got that record in their hands. And it was probably a shock because it was way more violent live and just in your face. And then the record was super polished, but for a bunch of 8-year-old kids, not in control of the way it sounds in the end. It's like we make a record with some 40-something-year-old producer dude, and then it goes to mix, and there's a company paying for it. It was a weird place. I think looking back on it is like little kids being like, well, it sounds good. It's not really what we sound like, but it turned out great. To me, it's cringy, but I get that it was a great nostalgic thing for a lot of people still to this day. And I'm proud of everything we've done, but that's where that shift was. I think that started with 10 Friends and us just like wanting to be more creative than.
It's a great song. And here we are 20 years later almost, which is crazy.
Almost.
My buddy Brad and I just saw you guys on this last tour with Spirit Box. We saw you in New Jersey.
Oh, cool.
It was crazy. Every choral moment, every sing-along moment from every album across the catalog, people were full force, just belting it out. And it was a crazy experience.
It's wild. It's a testament, of how rad the fans are, and I say this a lot, is our band doesn't talk about, like, everyone's really humble, which is great, but it's almost like poisonous how humble, like we like think that we're the worst and no one gives a shit anymore, and all that kind of stuff goes around the bus a lot. And it's cool to see even the more negative dudes be like, man, did you hear how loud they were singing Hallelujah? Which is like off of our newest record. They were singing it louder than they were singing Boy Brush Red, which is our biggest song, I guess, but it's just our oldest hit song, I guess. We do notice, and I think that's cool that the guys that would never talk about that notice, because I think that is fuel. You know, it's gas in the tank. It makes people want to continue to work harder on the new stuff, because you do see a lot of bands that only rely on the old stuff. And the cool thing about Underoath is like every tour has gotten bigger, which is just not the case for a lot of bands in our scene. And I think that's because we were always evolving, and like whether Lost in the Sound of Separation is your favorite, or Voyeurist, or Chasing Safety, there's something for everyone, and we always play everything that we can. We're never gonna play stuff off Chasing Safety, because now we make these artsy, heavy, whatever you want to call it. We're always gonna be like, no, those kids helped us build what we have now. We're not going to not play it. I don't enjoy necessarily playing songs off Chasing Safety, because I've been playing them, like you said, almost 20 years. It's for the people that bought the tickets. And when I'm standing out there and I feel the way that they're excited that we're playing, like Reinventing Your Exit or something, and you're like, this is awesome, because they are having such a good time, and that's everything, So to see that people react just as hard to On My Teeth and Hallelujah as they do Boy Brush Red and Writing on the Walls, it is just so much gas has been put in that Underoath tank. Like when we got back together, and then we did the biggest tours we'd ever done. We did that Rebirth tour, and then the next tour was even bigger, the Erase Me tour, and then the Voyeurist tour post-COVID. Like the fact that the band is still growing and evolving, we're looking at, okay, cool, this isn't just something that happened, that we're still just like going back and let's play the hits. It's cool to be like, I could see this band going for another 20 years if the way that people are responding and reacting to the material across the board definitely makes it easier for the band to create more. You're seeing people be stoked about the stuff that we're stoked about, not just stuff from the past, and that's great.
Well, it's because you guys keep putting out good music. If you weren't putting out good music, that wouldn't be the case.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know it's a weird thing to have somebody say, but Erase Me and Voyeurist are both excellent albums. So is Disambiguation and all these other great albums. So I love what you're doing over there. Of course, we're here to talk about Slow Tide, but I want to ask you a few questions before we move there, because if I don't ask any Underoath questions at all, people will kill me. No, they probably won't kill me.
No, dude. I am me. I talk about everything. There's nothing's off the table.
So, album you're most proud of? I know that's a tough one.
Well, okay. It is. It's tough because I could say every single one for different reasons, depending on how I'm thinking about it. So, this Slow Tide record that hasn't come out yet, because it's my first solo record, and I played every instrument on it except for drums, because I've got great drummer friends, but I did play some drums on it. Drums is not my strong suit. I play every instrument, but that's not my thing. But that's pretty huge for me, and I've never done a full-on solo thing, because I was always been like a little nervous that the hardcore metal community would crucify me or hate me or whatever, but then I stopped caring about that, because I've always written music in that lane. I've just never put it out, and I've worked with lots of artists in that lane and never really, and even before Sleepwave was the thing, I was doing like kind of like that started as like a Radioheadish, Coldplay-ish, like piano rock thing that I was working on during Underoath. And then as Underoath started to break up, I scrapped it all and decided to make something more heavy, because I needed that in my life still, like that heavy outlet. So I kind of switched gears last minute as the band broke up and rewrote the whole thing. But just besides the point. So there's the thing about me that says, I want to say the Slow Tide record is my first solo record. But then this Voyeurist that we made was our first self-produced record. And as a band, as far as we have gone to be able to produce ourselves and not break up again, it takes a lot of trust and a lot of love and understanding. And that's a really hard feat. and having the balls to do what we did with Define the Great Line, when the easy home run would have been just make Chasing Safety Part 2 and be big like Story of the Year or The Use, but then where would we be now? That's what everyone was expecting us to do. Like less screaming, more singing. Like I can just sing the whole time and not scream at all. And now we're at mainstream, but we just like, I don't know. So I could say something about every record that we've done, but it's hard to say because it's like, oh, you're just talking about the new stuff because of Voyeurist being self-produced and Slow Tide being my first ever solo record. I would say those are the things I'm most proud of right now. But but when I think back on time, like Disambiguation was a huge thing, like just stepping up and been like, Underoath's not going to die, and I'll show you why. And the band's still trudging through it.
You killed it on that album, man.
I appreciate it.
You killed that. Honestly, it's hard for me to say that's not my favorite album.
Yeah,
The Close Tide of Voyeurist.
Yeah, I love that album. And then there's parts of me that go lost in the sound was, and I was in such a dark place on those two records, but pulling through with what I did and what we did as a band, it's all stuff to be proud about. But right now, I would say Voyeurist and the Slow Tide record that hasn't come out yet, just because of where I'm at in my life now. But that's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, I know it is. That's why I asked it.
I would say
you always give somebody inner turmoil that's creative because you're like, well, I like this. And then I do it. I know when I go looking back at things, I'm like, man, I really didn't like that. And then I go back and listen to something, I'm like, why didn't I ever put this out again? Because you're like, man, this is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Favorite song to perform? Another tough one.
I really like to perform Hallelujah right now because of that newness of seeing the crowd react to something that new. And that in breakdown is super fun. That's tough. I really like performing Illuminator, Pneumonia, and like Casting Such a Thin Shadow, like the songs I'm playing guitar on. Those are a lot of fun. But if you were to ask me today, like what I'm looking for, like we leave for tour. I leave tomorrow for a festival and then come home and then go on tour. It was fun playing. When we were playing I Gave Up, that was cool off of Erase Me. It's the last song, and it's like kind of a piano ballad. It was cool because they were rolling out a piano, and I would play the piano and sing. And that's something we've never done in Underoath. That was a fun thing to do, just because it's different for us, like very off-brand for us to do. Like I did it with Slow Tide, it makes sense, but with Underoath, it was like a cool moment.
Sure.
And I broke the shit out of that. And I was climbing all of that thing on the heavy parts of that song. And that was just cool because it was just like another thing. It was just a cool thing to add to the set.
I think this is the last tough one. You got all these great collaborations with Matt from Emo's Not Dead. You got Sleeping with Sirens. Who's your favorite collaborator?
There's someone on the Slow Tide record that I can't say yet, but that was a lot of fun. Matt Cutshaw was sick because it spawned this relationship that we had. Like I hear from him like once a week or once every other week. And we did that song during the heat of COVID, like the thick of COVID. And once we did that all over the internet. And then when I flew out to LA and met him in person, it was like a lifelong friendship that we made. And like, we just did that cruise with them. And I talk to him all the time. And he's such a solid dude. Like that guy deserves all the success that's coming his way because he's a good person. Like when you just get the vibe that someone's just genuinely kind and they do care about the right things and they're a hard worker, like all that stuff he has. So even that song's just kind of like a funny song and I'm only in it for a minute. Like I think about that because of the friendship that I made. There's other songs I've collaborated with that maybe I'm more like, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. There's some that haven't come out yet. There's someone that I worked with on the Slow Tide record that sings. He's a feature on my record that is super cool. When I met him and his band and we worked together, we created great relationships there as well. I'm a relationship guy. Like I've done a lot of cool songs and worked on a lot of cool stuff, but if I think about stuff that I've done over the last couple of years, I always think about Matt just because we do have such a good friendship. But man, I'm trying to think.
That's cool. It's cool what he's doing because it all comes from a fandom approach. So it's like utmost respect and humor which is just
Yeah,
great.
yeah, I know. The humor is great. And the Sleeping with Sirens stuff, like I've known some of those guys forever. And that was fun to work on that because I really like half the song wasn't done when I started to work on it with them. So that was cool because I was really hands-on with that one. There's others I'm just not thinking about, but I typically don't work with people that I'm not friends with.
So as brief as possible, new record label, MNRK, new track coming out March 3rd.
Yeah.
Link to pre-save on Spotify is in the podcast notes, obviously. Anything you can share, any behind the scenes, what to expect. I like the preview. Sounding pretty wild.
Yeah, dude, the song is super dope. We're approaching things a little bit differently on this record. I think it's going to work out really well for us as far as like our mental state and our relationships with each other and our workflow is we're doing things very hyper-focused. Because normally we get together and we write for a long time and then we go lock up in the studio for 2 months and make this full record. And by the end, we want to kill each other. And we've got some tears. We've got some blood. It's like people are angry and upset. And there's a lot of emotions that go into a record, which is good. But also it can be counterproductive. Like we overcook a lot, I feel like, as Underoath. Like we overthink sometimes. And like there's some songs on Voyeurist that the demo is better than the final because we butchered it. Because we just tried too hard to make it cool or make it this or make it that. And I think what we're doing right now is exciting to me because it's like we're doing things in little chunks. And it's exciting. And this is the first taste of the next chapter of Underoath. And I mean, all I can say is that it's going to be one of those fun ones to play live. I think people are going to like it. I truly do. It's another step progression forward from Voyeurist, in my opinion.
Well, I feel like you guys are always evolving. That's kind of been like the only thing you can expect. There's always an evolution from album to album. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
We're never the people that can write the same thing twice because we would be unhappy.
All right. Well, we're moving on to the goods now. So I noticed the water trend. We had Sleepwave before. We got Slow Tide now. Is water something that you pull creativity from, find rest in? Is it innate to who you are as a person? Where's this name come from?
Yeah. Number one, it's hard to name a band nowadays because everyone's copywritten everything and every social you can imagine is already grabbed. So it makes it super hard. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I probably had a better explanation for this. I grew up in the water like probably most of us did. And I don't know. I think I find it just so mesmerizing that there's parts of the world that we don't know about that's underwater. And to me, it's replenishing. Yeah, I do find a lot of lyrical inspiration from water stuff terms, I guess, terminology. And like, I wish there was a smarter way I could say this, but it's inspiring to think about how things, just the way that the ocean is, it's like, you can just sit there and look at it for hours and find some inspiration from it. And it just happens to turn out that most of my things I've done have water names. But yeah, there was a lot of that going on in disambiguation too. And a lot of, I guess in my brain somewhere, like I was a struggling addict for a long time. And just with drugs and alcohol, I think you kind of feel like you're drowning all the time anyway. So I feel like that's always been my thing, is just trying to stay afloat. When you finally catch that wave, I don't know if you've ever been surfing before, but that feeling, oh, wow. And then you ride it to shore, right? And I think that's like, I've always been kind of treading water and drowning because I was an addict for so long, but I finally like caught that wave to get out of it when I decided to change my life. And it's something that I always think about, I guess. It's just like how I was able to get through all that shit. And I don't know. I guess just the water inspiration is just a visual for me, I guess, when I'm sitting there, like I like to write with pen and paper if I can, but I'm always like kind of doodling and like drawing stuff. And a lot of that is like water based. I don't know why. I guess I should have a better answer.
Water is kind of like mysterious because it's one of those things that is either super calming and amazing or is extremely terrifying and creepy.
Yeah, it can be extremely violent, and it can be extremely peaceful. And it's pretty wild.
Can you describe your creative process with Slow Tide and working on these new tracks? Going from initial concept, demos, tracking it out. How has this process been? maybe even next
Well-
to what you've experienced in the past?
I tend to save anything heavy, like riffage, that kind of vibe, whatever Underoath you want to call it. I save that to do with the guys. There's 4 of us that write in Underoath. It's myself, Aaron, Tim, and Chris. And like we've tried to do the like everyone works on stuff separately and then we bring it together. And those songs tend to be the most out of place ones in a bad way, like not the right kind of way. So we kind of got to that conclusion when we were just starting to work on Voyeurs is like, let's not bring any solo songs in and squish it into Underoath and Underoath it. Like let's work together. And like we did back in the garage band days. I think that allows me a lot of spare time to do things in my brain that's not heavy, which is kind of where this spawned from, is that I've got a lot of, it's like, I'm always writing music. I've got a lot of stuff that I want to do that doesn't really have a place in Underoath. And I don't really want to work on anything heavy when I'm not with the guys. It just leaves me a lot of time for creativity. And during COVID, which is when I wrote most of this stuff, I had nothing else to do. I remember talking to my brother and he was like, dude, like if I were you, like you're a musician, what are you going to do if touring never comes back? What are you going to do? Sit around and wait for the Underoath guys to want to work when some of those guys have 3 kids and a side business? You need to be in control of your own shit. And that's kind of why I was like, I wanted to do something solo because I wanted to be completely hands-on and not in like a bad way, just in like, I want to be able to pick and choose and control when I do what I do as far as that stuff goes. So I just started writing. I just sat down, I maybe start with a beat or whatever, but I just start, it's how I always do it. I just some sort of idea, and then I pick up a guitar, and then I'm off to writing vocals. Once I got like a little bit of an idea of where the song sonically is going, I just kind of catch a vibe with it, and then just start working. And I demoed out all this stuff in my house. I did 2 demos in California with my friends, and then I did the rest in my house. It was like right before lockdown, and then the rest I did. I think the last one I did, I was like getting on a plane as it was getting weird, like. And then I got home, and then it was like, oh yeah, we're never leaving again, and live music is done forever. So
Some scary times.
I was like, well, yeah, and it's also like, if live music never comes back, I better be able to just create, So it was an inspiring time. I took the scariness and flipped it into something that I want to give equal attention to as Underoath. Like, I don't view it as an online project or a side project. To me, it's just an equal part of me. It's just new. It's not my side project. It's my other band. I did the whole thing at home, and then right after we recorded Voyeurist, I went to my buddy. I went to his house because he's a great producer. He's got really good gear, and I trust him a lot. And he's just got a good ear for things. And I was like, dude, here's all the demos I have. And they were demoed out. Like, I could have released it, but I was like, here's what I got. I need 2 or so weeks, and I want to come and like just throw me through the ringer. I don't like, sometimes you don't know, you might have your head in tunnel vision. So I was like, I could be crazy, but I feel like this shit's really good. So I went to my buddy Micah's house, and we just built the record as I would an Underoath record, but I'm just playing everything, and we definitely ran into some things that were like, this could be better. Like, let's rework this. This sucks. This is incredible. It was like what I needed if I'm going to step out as a solo artist. I wanted to have other eyes and ears on it. I wouldn't change it. I've been sitting on it for a minute, and I'll, go through the Dropbox and listen. Like, yeah, I still wouldn't change anything on there. So I'm feeling stoked about it. And it is, I don't expect it to be, Underoath fans are going to like it. If I were to sell out for money, I would have just made a metalcore band. You know what I mean? Like, because then every Underoath fan would have bought it, or at least most of them. I didn't want to do that, and I don't care about that kind of stuff. Like, I wanted to make something that I wanted to make that's the people that know me know I'm not just some like metalhead dude. I've never been that way. Like I grew up listening to grunge and my parents' music, which is like the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and all that, Pink Floyd. And then the grunge thing was like me and my brothers, and then that spawned into, at the same time we were listening to the Deftones, we were listening to Radiohead and Coldplay. Or you know what I mean? Like I've never been like I'd put on like Converge and then put on a Blush a Run of the Head from, like back to back. Like I've never been a hardcore kid, and I've never been a this kid or that kid. I've just loved music. So I've always created in different worlds. So I just wanted to do something that was 100% me. Like, what is me without Underoath and that like energy and that vibe of what Underoath is going to be a heavy band. That's what it's going to be forever. Like whatever that means. Obviously, it evolves and it changes, but like it's always going to be that thing that we started when we were young, and it's got that energy, and we're going to go this way. But me as just an artist, as a songwriter, like, what do I want to do? It's like, I want to do stuff that I want to listen to that I don't really listen to a whole lot of heavy bands because I'm always around it. So I kind of was just like, what inspires me? What makes me feel good? Like, what do I want to drive my car to? What do I want to chill at the beach to or go skating to? I just made music that I wanted to hear. So I try to do the same thing with Underoath, is like, if I want to hear a heavy song, what do I want it to sound like? And that's what I try to go for. That's it. It's really, it's like, I was like, I don't listen to a lot of heavy music anymore, but if I do, what would I want to hear? So let's go for that. And this is what I did with this is I don't know which genre you want to call Slow Tide, like alt or indie or
alt rock, indie rock,
synth pop or whatever.
There's so many different labels now. It's confusing.
Yeah. Whatever you want to call it. I have a lot of peers in that in artists I look up to as well, and music that I jam on the regs, and I just go, well, if I were in control, what would I want to hear? So I just sat down and made that.
That's cool.
See where it goes.
That's very cool. When you go back and you listen to some of these songs as you're waiting to pick out which is the next track you're going to release or what have you, is there things you go, oh, okay, I wonder, like, do you often wonder maybe where the influence of something came from? I'll have a playlist that has heavy metal, rap, pop, all in one thing for a road trip.
Yeah, of course.
That helps me with my creative side because I'm always thinking not in one layer, and I imagine that's the way you are, listening to so many different types of music.
I don't really typically think about where the inspiration comes from after it's done, because I've worked so hard on it, I don't even remember where I started half the time, But I do like, just like you, I like hip hop to pop to rock and metal, everything. The only thing I don't really typically jam on too much is country. It's just not really.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, but there's guys in the band
which sounds great live.
Yeah.
Which is super funny to me.
Yeah.
Live country music sounds awesome, but I just don't like listening to the country radio.
Yeah. It's not typically my go-to, but I don't really listen to it at all. I'm not saying that I'm a hater either. Like, someone can show me a country song, and I'm like, that's a great song. But typically, I'm listening to other stuff for sure.
Anything that you listen to that maybe people wouldn't expect? Like, for me, people look at me and they hear me listen to hip-hop all the time. They hear me listen to metal. When I tell them Nick Drake is one of my favorite artists, they're like, who the heck is that? I don't know. You got any of those?
Well, I don't think there's anything that's super surprising, or at least doesn't seem like that to me. But maybe like, I do like some of Justin Bieber stuff. I guess that's kind of surprising. Yeah, I'm a believer. Yeah.
For sure. That's funny.
Especially more of he's maybe not like his old stuff, but like some of his newer stuff over the last, I'd say since 2015 or so on. Like, what's he like kind of matured and like found himself?
Well, Benny Blanco's a great producer. Then you got John Bellion as an awesome writer as well. It's not one that I would have guessed at all.
I can appreciate a Taylor Swift song or a Miley Cyrus song. You won't see me putting it on, but like if it comes on, I can be like, oh, this is actually super dope.
With writing this album, I know you were writing it during this COVID, primarily probably the lockdown, I would imagine, because there was like a solid year where you couldn't do anything, it seemed like. Did you experience any time of creative blocks at all, or were you just in it and just kept rolling?
No, yeah, I definitely didn't feel the blocks, but I definitely felt frustrated at times of what am I even doing? I never got to a point where I like was like writer's block or anything, or But there were times where I was like, maybe I'm crazy. I should just delete this shit. Like, I've got 1,000,000 songs that I call them dead on my hard drive, which is just songs I poured my heart and soul into that no one will ever hear. And that I've got probably more of those than I have songs out.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy to think.
Lay Low, your latest single that you dropped, the one I messaged you on because I was like, whoa, what is this? This is amazing. Very cool song.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to go ahead and play that now. We'll come back and talk about that track. Man, Lay Low, awesome song. I love the build. I love the vocals. How much fun did you have creating and mixing the song? I love the way the vocals are ethereal, almost swirling around everywhere, it seems.
Yeah. Cutting the song's fun. That one's like playing it on the guitar. I rehearse, even though I don't have my live band yet, because I don't really quite need to until there's a couple more songs out. But I rehearse with the stems. So I'll have the mic, so I have the vocals and the guitars muted, and have the bass and the keyboards and the drums on. So in my studio, like I rehearse all the time. And that song's fun just to play guitar to in itself. And that one it's funny because that one was originally that vocal idea. This never happens, by the way. So I was doing some writing for some other people during COVID. And one DJ asked me to do like top line, which is called vocal. Like you write the lyrics and the melody. A lot of times you sing it and then they replace you with someone else, like a girl or whatever, whoever's popping right now. And I wrote that. I got his track and I wrote the vocal in that melody almost in 1 or 2 takes. It just came out of me so fast. And I was like, holy shit, I really like that. So then I muted the track that they gave me and started writing my own song. And
that's awesome.
It did change a lot. It was only like, it was just the very first little section there, but it did inspire the whole song. And then I ended up rewriting that pre-chorus. It got that like strokes guitar kind of thing going on, and rewrote that in the studio when I was cutting that song, because the pre-chorus just didn't hit the way that I wanted it to. And Micah noticed. Micah was like, I don't know, this seems too samey. And we just deleted that section and just started like jamming. And that was just like, that came out and then inspired that whole vocal there. So it was a fun song to track. And I think it's gonna be a fun one to play live. But I'm saving the even catchier ones for later as I build this slow tide thing. Like, I'm sitting on some of the like, and all the songs are like bangers or bops or whatever people call them. But I'm proud of all of them. But I'm sitting on the ones that are like even catchier, I guess, because I don't, there's not a lot of people following it yet. So you got to kind of like get there, I guess. So.
How many songs in the bank? How many songs you planning to release for the total?
There's 11 songs mixed and mastered right now for the record. So whenever I print the vinyl, it'll be those 11 songs. I'm already starting to kind of mess with more, but I haven't gotten these out yet. I guess the next steps is just building this, trying to build it online so there's enough demand there to play and to work on the live band to make sure I'm a live music guy. Like I'm not going to play a show unless the band that I've got with me and what we've worked on is taking the record to the next level. Like, how do we present it live to where it just is like, wow, that's cool. Not just like dudes playing and, whatever. So
right.
That's kind of where my head's at now, is like, I do have some ideas floating around for album 2 already, but being the album 1's not out, I'm kind of like, how am I going to do this? And who am I going to get to play with me? And I've got different things in my mind of like what I'm going to do, trying to build a cool live environment for it. It's one of those bands. It's going to be like more of a lifestyle thing. I want it to be like a community, a feel good place for people to be and hang out, be a part of. Like, the whole thing right now I'm doing is I'm doing all the emails. I'm responding to all the people that are commenting, and normally it's your label or your manager doing all that stuff when people think they're talking to the band, and 99% of the time they're not. What's cool with it being this new, it's not to the point to where I can't keep up with it. So I'm like, it's fun for me right now, because I'm like, I am communicating with these people that are jumping on board this early. It's like the VFW hall days. It's just, we're doing it online. If you're posting about it now, it's like wearing the shirt to school that you were at the VFW hall show last night. It's just a different world. So like, people sharing it, sharing the song, showing their friends the song, like streaming the song, all that stuff helps. And it helps me build this community where I'm like, people signing up online, like putting their emails in, like they're getting emailed once a week from me. And like, I'm doing like giveaways and, gonna probably let some people hear some songs early and stuff just by signing up, and just trying to build something cool for people that want to be a part of it. And then I don't think like I said earlier, I don't think it's going to be just Underoath fans. I think the world is massive. There's so many people that listen to music, and heavy music is such a small percentage. I think some Underoath fans will come over, but I think most of the people that will like this are people that don't necessarily listen to Underoath. I think there's a market for it and a place for it. It's just about getting it out there and connecting with those people, which takes time.
I think you're doing it the right way too, because like you said, it's a grassroots movement. And for me to just hit you up and say, yo, I love what you're doing, I'd like to talk about it if you're down, you responded like pretty quick. I was like, dang. And when you start getting those tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands,
yeah, it's
your
hard.
Best friend can message you 100 times and you might not even see it.
Yeah.
It's crazy to be able to have that account and start from the ground up. I think is really the way to go, because you're able to, and not that you're selling everything about yourself to everybody, but getting to know you and know that this is something that you're wanting to push and get people behind I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's really fun for me. And I think that's the whole point of it, is doing something that is truly me, that I believe in, and just leaning into it. This is just what I want to do. And I think, and it doesn't take away from Underoath or anything, because Underoath, when you get to that size, you have to do less is more with a lot of stuff. You can't show up every, like 2 times a year, 3 times a year on tour, because then people just like, oh, I'll just catch them next time. Everything has to be an event. And that's just how it goes. So gives me a lot of time to work on this.
Yeah. That's true, man. And like you said, it's one of those things when it's yours and it's what you want it to be. There's not all this extra. Obviously, there's critiquing, but there's not all this extra work trying to make it something that it's not. It's just letting this thing exist as what it is, and that's what it is.
I want to build it into something to, you know, and I think it's cool that it does take time, but I am excited. I don't expect everyone to like it, but I don't want it to go by. Like when I did that Sleepwave project, like before it was done, people still didn't even know it existed. You know, like that's tough. It's like you can hate it all you want, but at least having the opportunity for people to hear it. You know what I mean? When you see that not even 5% of the people that follow you have heard it yet, you know, you're like, there's a lot of work to be done. And granted, you don't expect every Underoath fan, like I said earlier, to come over, but like there's a lot of people that I've touched and met in real life that don't even know it exists yet. I'll talk to more kids on this tour that maybe have streamed the song already, but that's fine. It just takes time to build this stuff. And I'm not a big online social media guy. I've never have really done that. I've never really pushed that. So that's a little bit of a hard thing because I can't quite grab everyone that I've ever really had follow me because I never did the followers thing before or did the whole Instagram.
The social media that existed the first round of Underoath was basically non-existent now. I mean, Facebook's the only one that's still around, and I think that was barely around.
And I didn't do any of that. I didn't do MySpace. I didn't do Facebook. I didn't have a sidekick on tour like some of the other band dudes. That wasn't part of what I wanted to do. And then Instagram came out and I still wasn't like, I like the mystery like you were talking about earlier. But nowadays that doesn't work. So you got to put some effort into it.
People want to feel like they're part of what's going on. That's a great way to do it. But, well, I love the music, man. I love both tracks so far. I'm excited to see what's coming next. I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Absolutely love it. Stay safe out there. Have fun on tour. I think my buddy and I are going to make it onto this next tour. I'm just not sure which location yet. I live in Philly area, so we have a lot of options.
Yeah, hell yeah. Come out to a show, man. Let me know if you do, and I'll try to link up. Give a high five.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time, man. It's been a blast. Have a great day, and we'll see you out there.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, that does it for the interview. Thanks again, Spencer Chamberlain. What a legend for being on the show. Shout out to my team. Juan, buddy, I hope you can talk next week. John, appreciate you. Zim, my buddy Nick, coming through with the animations and turning our guest into killer cartoons. That's all I can really say about that. So, guys, tune in next week. It's going to be a blast. As per usual, Thursday nights, 9:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitter Spaces, and of course available as a podcast, usually by the next morning, Friday morning. Stay tuned, plug in, hit the notification bell on Twitter, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform because we have a lot of things and a lot more guests coming your way. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.